The southeast is a land of legends, and the city of Qiantang has been a jewel of prosperity since ancient times. I looked out over the mist-covered willows and the painted bridges, where the wind rustled through emerald trees and 100,000 households thrived. The clouds and trees hugged the low sands while the waves rolled in like frosted snow. It was a scene of endless grandeur. I once wrote a poem called Watching the Sea Tide to capture this very spirit, the fierce tides, the protective camps, and the sheer luxury of the Jiangnan region. My words painted the wealth of the South in just a few strokes, a beauty unmatched under heaven. I wasn't just any writer. I was Lu Yong. Most people knew me as Lu Qi because I was the seventh child in my family. My roots went deep, back to the famous Lu clan of Hedong, descendants of Lu Xiaohui. My ancestors were legends. During the Tang dynasty, a daughter of our house was even handpicked by Emperor Taizong to be the Princess of Jin. When her husband, Li Ji, became Emperor Gaozong, she became Empress Wang. That was the peak of our family's power. But the court is a dangerous place. Empress Wang was killed by Wu Zetian, and my ancestors were caught up in a rebellion case and executed. Though we were eventually cleared, our influence withered. Still, the talent stayed in our blood. I grew up surrounded by poetry and music. My father and brothers were all scholars, and I was no slouch either. At 18, I headed north for the imperial exams. But when I reached Hangzhou, the scenery stole my heart. I stayed for 2 years, wandering through Suzhou and Yangzhou before finally reaching the capital, Bianliang, at the age of 24. I spent my days in the wine shops and song houses of the capital, writing lyrics that the common folk loved. They used to say that wherever there was a well for water, there was someone singing my songs. If a girl in a tea house sang one of my pieces, her fame would skyrocket. People lined up at my door begging for lyrics, and I was happy to trade my ink for wine money. But my career was a mess. I failed my first exam and, in a fit of bitterness, wrote a song called He Chong Tian. I called myself a minister in plain robes and wrote that I'd rather trade my fame for a quiet song and a drink. That song made its way into the palace and reached the emperor's ears. When the next exam results were being finalized, the emperor saw my name and personally crossed it out. Let him go and have his quiet song, the emperor said. Why does he need fame? From then on, I mockingly called myself the lyricist by imperial decree. I was like so many scholars, caught between wanting a simple life and craving a seat at the high table. I spent years drifting, finally passing the exams at 48, but the other officials looked down on me. They thought I was vulgar. It wasn't until my later years that I got a minor post. Now, I was nearly 70, retired and living in Runzhou. One afternoon, I was out for a stroll when I saw a familiar silhouette ahead. I followed the man toward the Baizue Pavilion, the most famous restaurant in the city. The smell of wine hit me, and suddenly, I was thirsty. Official Lu, a voice called out, patting my shoulder. Are we strangers now? You don't even recognize an old friend. I froze and turned around. Standing there was a man in his 30s, wearing a white robe with his hair tied in a black and gold band. He had a heavy black sword strapped to his waist and a bright, spirited look in his eyes. My heart leaped with joy. Brother Hong, I shouted. What wind blew you here? I grabbed his arm and started dragging him into the pavilion. Forget where you're going. Let's have 3 bowls of wine first. Of course, he laughed, letting me lead the way. I was a regular there. I liked everyone. Merchants, beggars, it didn't matter. The owner saw me and beamed. Official Lu, come in, sit. I'll be over to toast you as soon as I finish these accounts. The place was packed. People waved and greeted me, and I nodded back, feeling like the sun was shining just for me. A young waiter named Zhang Xiaoi rushed over to welcome us. You're quite popular, brother, Hong teased. But it's too noisy down here. I heard the 3rd floor is quiet and has the best view. Let's head up. Up we go. I agreed. The 3rd floor was elegant and small, with only 2 tables and a few stools. The scent of incense lingered in the air. We took the table by the window. Zhang Xiaoi wiped it down with a flourish and bowed. Official Lu, what can I get for your guest? He glanced at Hong and didn't even wait for me to speak. Sir, since you're in Runzhou, you must try our specialties. Roast duck, sweet and sour fish. Buddha jumps over the wall. I waved him off, laughing. Zhang Xiaoi, How do you know Brother Hong isn't a local? Keep talking like that, and I'll have the manager slap your mouth. The kid was only 15 or 16, and he knew I was just teasing him for being clever. I know everyone you drink with, official Lou, merchants, guards, even the ladies from the west side. He knew I spent my time in the pleasure quarters, where the most talented women sang my songs. It was a joke between us. Besides, the boy continued, Master Hong here looks like a hero. And that sword on his waist, that's no ordinary blade. Hong got curious. The sword is in its sheath. How do you know it's a treasure? See, I told Hong. He's sharp. Master Hong definitely isn't from around here, the boy bragged. I can tell by your accent. My uncle, the storyteller Master Zhang, taught me that real legendary swords have a fierce aura. They have to be kept in simple, old-looking sheaths to hide their edge. Your sheath is intricately carved but looks aged, and the blade is wider than a normal sword. It's a treasure for sure. I smiled. I know, Master Zhang. I always thought you just had a big mouth, but it turns out you actually learned something. Zhang Xiaoyi was about to brag more when the manager's voice roared from downstairs. You little brat. It's busy as hell down here, and you're up there flapping your gums. The manager's roar from downstairs cut through our conversation like a thunderclap. He was screaming at Zhang Xiaoyi for slacking off while the restaurant was packed. The boy didn't miss a beat. He straightened his official cap, gave us a quick, respectful bow, and scurried downstairs to help out. Left alone at the table, Hong Xiugu laughed and shook his head. I was so caught up in the kids' stories that I forgot to order food. He looked at me, his expression turning sincere. Brother Liu, I'm no high-ranking official. My name is Hong Xiugu, and I've spent my life wandering the martial world. We may have met by chance, but let's not act like strangers. He turned to me with a spark in his eyes. I'm a simple man, and my greatest love is drinking. I want us to drink our fill today. What do you say? I laughed, the sound feeling warm in my chest. How could I forget your love for the bottle? You have the same heroic spirit you had years ago, maybe even more. I called out for the boy. Xiaoyi, bring us some wine and snacks. And forget the small cups. Bring us big wine bowls. A few moments later, the table was spread with meat and 2 large jars of rice wine. Xiaoyi apologized, saying things were too busy downstairs for him to stay, and then he disappeared again. I didn't wait. I poured 2 large bowls, the liquid sloshing over the edges. My hands were shaking a little. Old age and the excitement of the reunion were taking their toll. Before Hong could even respond, I grabbed my bowl and downed it in one go. Hong saw my emotion and didn't say a word. He simply raised his own bowl and drained it. We went through 3 bowls like that, back to back. I stood up and bowed deeply, my voice thick with emotion. Brother, we parted ways so long ago. I didn't know I'd have to wait this long to see you again. A tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. If you hadn't saved me back then, my bones would have been rotting in the earth for 18 years already. Hong jumped up to support me, guiding me back into my seat. Brother, don't speak of it. I've always admired you. Helping you was simply what had to be done. He sat back down, but his brow furrowed. He looked like he had something on his mind, but he was hesitating. We are friends despite the age gap, I told him, sensing his unease. Even if 8 years have passed, our bond is understood. You didn't come to Runzhou just for the scenery. If you need my help, just say it. Hong sighed, looking relieved. It brings me joy to see you again. These past few years, I've been buried in mundane affairs. Every time I had a moment to look for you, I seemed to just miss you. I nodded. My career had been a mess. I'd spent over a decade being transferred from one remote post to another, living a nomadic life. Most of my old friends had stopped writing long ago. To see him now was a rare gift. I took another deep gulp of wine. Back in the first year of Jingyu, Hong continued, I was barely 20. You didn't look down on me back then. You treated me as an equal, and we became sworn brothers. You asked about my home and my masters, and I didn't know how to answer. I told you I was from Yingtian Prefecture and learned from a local teacher. I remember it clearly, I said. Hong looked ashamed. I'm sorry, brother. The truth is, I'm from Dali. I've been in the martial world since I was a child. My sect has strict rules about revealing our identity. Back then, we had just met, and I didn't dare break those rules, so I lied. I hope you can forgive me. I nodded to show him I wasn't offended. He relaxed. In those years, my sect rarely showed its face. Only a dozen people in the entire martial world knew we existed. But times have changed. I can tell you now. Our headquarters is in Yingtian, and a few years ago, I was sent to Jiangning to lead a branch there. I thought for a moment. I know of the 13 swordsmen in Jiangning. They split from the Qingqing sect years ago. And there's the Hunyuan Gate. I knew their founder, Gu Xingzu. Then there's Zijin Villa, famous for helping the poor, though nobody knows who the owner is. Other than that, it's mostly salt smugglers. I'm surprised I've never heard of your group. Hong smiled. It's no wonder. But you might have heard of the things we've done. Listen. He leaned in. In the 4th year of Taiping Xinghua, when Emperor Taizong campaigned against Taiyuan, the rebel Lu Jiyuan asked the Liao kingdom for help. The Liao army was a force of wolves and tigers, seemingly unstoppable. But 7 of my sect brothers sneaked into the Liao camp. They spread rumors, caused internal strife among the generals, and eventually assassinated the Liao commander during a river crossing. The Liao fell into chaos, and our army crushed them. I gave him a thumbs up. Brilliant and brave. We clinked bowls and drank. Then, in the 1st year of Jingda, Hong went on. 18 of our elders went behind enemy lines. They burned Liao granaries and assassinated their generals. At Shanzhou, one of my uncles used a hidden projectile to kill the Liao general Xiaotaoan. Between that and the emperor's presence, the Liao were terrified into signing the Chanyuan Treaty. My grandfather was one of those 18 men. I was hooked. I urged him to tell me more. Hong paused. The 3rd story I have to tell happened 18 years ago, the day we met. I froze. The first 2 stories were about the fate of the empire, events that happened before I was even born. Now he was saying the day we met was on that same level? I stopped smiling and looked him in the eye, waiting. Don't be in a hurry, brother, Hong said. First, I need to tell you where my sect actually came from. It starts with the founding of our dynasty. Everyone knows the famous generals who helped Emperor Taizu, but they don't know that when he was young, he wandered the world and took 5 swordsmen as his sworn brothers. He kept them a secret. When he became emperor, he sent those 5 to Yingtian to start a sect in the shadows. He told them the world had suffered enough from war. He wanted them to build a place called Guide Villa, to hide from the world and train the best warriors to protect the peace. The emperor's secret orders were clear. The sect was to remain in the shadows, ready to be called upon at any moment. The first group of leaders were men who loved fine blades and lived by the code of chivalry. They spent their lives wandering the land, searching for the 8 legendary swords forged by Oyezi, the ancestor of all blacksmiths. You've heard their names in legends: Longquan, Taiyi, Gongbu, Zhanlu, Chunjun, Qingying, Yuchang, and Juk. By the time the sect was established, the founders had already recovered Longquan, Taiyi, and Gongbu. These 3 became the symbols of the sect's authority. The other 5 had been scattered during the chaos at the end of the Sui dynasty, becoming the treasures of 5 great martial sects. Those sects helped Li Yuan and his son conquer the world and establish the Tang dynasty. For a time, 3 swords stayed in the palace and 5 ruled the martial world. But when Empress Wu Zetian took the throne, she sowed discord, the alliance shattered, and the 5 swords vanished. The emperor told our founders to find those 5 missing blades and reunite the sects under the crown's service. He gave them 8 words to live by as a motto: cultivate virtue, act with sincerity, persevere through hardship. The 5 founders even cast aside their original names, adopting new ones based on those words. They traveled to Yingtian, built Guide Villa, and founded the 8 Desolations sect. Every disciple since then has been named according to that 8-word cycle. I am a member of the 5th generation. Hong paused, his throat dry from talking. He poured a bowl of wine and downed it in heavy gulps. He looked relieved, as if a weight had been lifted now that he'd finally shared his secret with me. So that's how it is, I said, nodding slowly. You're only in your 30s, yet you're already a branch leader. Your sect must be thriving. But tell me, how many branches do you have in the Song Empire? And where exactly is yours located here in Jiangning? Hong toasted me again before continuing. Before the founding emperor passed away, he handed the secret of our sect down to his successor. Every emperor since, including the current one, has known we exist. We are the hidden blade of the throne. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. I found myself stretching my neck forward to hear him. In the first year of Jingda, when the Liao army invaded, Emperor Jinzong actually considered moving the capital, Hong whispered. I nodded. I was in the south back then. I heard the rumors, but I didn't know they were true. It was a chaotic time, Hong said. The court was debating whether to flee to Shenzhou or Izhou. During that uncertainty, the emperor sent a secret decree to our sect. He ordered us to establish branches in both cities as a backup plan. Even though the emperor eventually decided to lead the army himself and sign the treaty, our sect kept growing. My lineage built Zijin Villa on the mountain just outside this city. I am currently the head of the Zijin branch. My only goal is to serve until my last breath. I knew the place well. Zijin Mountain, or the Purple Gold Mountain, stands tall just east of the city. When the sun hits the cliffs, they glow with a golden hue. In recent years, Zijin Villa had become famous across the south. People knew them as incredibly wealthy, generous, and full of elite warriors who fought for justice. There's even a folk song the kids sing. Whether you want 1,000 gold or 10,000, look to Zijin. Don't fear poverty or evil, for the 7 stars are there. The 7 stars were the villa's top fighters, legends in their own right. I had no idea your villa had such a history, I admitted. The 8 Desolations sect isn't a name you hear often in the martial world. We prefer it that way, Hong replied. After the treaty, things were peaceful for a long time. The emperor rarely called on us. But then, 18 years ago, everything changed. My heart skipped a beat. There it was again, 18 years ago. Prominent government officials were being assassinated all over the country, Hong explained. Brilliant men with bright futures were dying in strange ways. Some were poisoned, some strangled, others had their throats slit. The emperor was furious and ordered our grandmaster to investigate. One of my uncles, Su Qingyan, noticed something strange on one of the bodies. The victim had sunken temples, bulging eyes, and a thin red line running from his wrist to his forearm. It was the signature of a dark technique from the Blood Pond Cave in the northeast. Hong took a breath. My uncle called for reinforcements. My senior uncle, Duan Qingchuan, brought 7 of us south. I was sent to Gusu to scout for suspicious characters. By luck, I spotted a beggar who looked filthy, but the skin behind his ear was pale and clean. He was wearing a disguise. I followed him for 3 days and realized he was stalking the new prefect, Fan Zhongyan. I listened, mesmerized. One evening, I lost him in an alley. I panicked and leaped over the walls into the prefect's manor to warn him. That's when I saw you and a servant in the front hall. The assassin lunged at you with a short, thin blade. I jumped in just in time. But as soon as we traded blows, I realized his martial arts didn't belong to the Blood Pond Cave at all. I let out a bitter laugh. I remembered that day. I had just finished visiting Prefect Fan, and a servant was seeing me out. In the dark, the assassin must have mistaken me for the prefect. If Hong hadn't appeared, I'd be a dead man. I owe you my life, I said, cupping my hands in gratitude once more. The man was fast, Hong said. I managed to land a palm strike, but he vanished into the night. However, I saw his weapon clearly. It was the Yuchang sword, one of the 8 legendary blades. I had 1,000 more questions, but Hong suddenly held up a hand, silencing me. He looked toward the floorboards, his expression turning cold. Brother, he whispered. The restaurant has gone silent. He's here. I froze. Usually, when I came here to drink, Manager Tang would come up to greet me. But now, at the height of the dinner rush, there wasn't a sound from below. I looked out the window. The street was empty. The people I had just seen were scurrying away in a hurry. Suddenly, I heard footsteps on the stairs. A cold, mocking voice drifted up. My disciple, once we capture him, the pavilion master will reward us handsomely. My blood ran cold. I recognized that voice. You're taking his sword, a second voice added. But you have to let me play with it for a few days first. Of course, the first voice replied. That Hong kid isn't escaping today. When the master is happy, he might even let you keep the blade. I felt a chill down my spine. That second voice belonged to Zhang Xiaoyi. As they reached the 3rd floor, I saw them. Zhang Xiaoyi was standing next to his master, who was dressed like a scholar with a long beard and arrogant, slanted eyes. He looked like a mix between a monk and a commoner, radiating a cold, haughty energy. It was Mr. Zhang. Zhang, the storyteller from the east side of the city. The doors to the restaurant had been barred. No one was getting in or out. I moved toward the window to shout for help, but Zhang Xiaoyi's voice cut through the air behind me. "Official Lu," he smirked. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." "If you scream," Zhang Xiaoyi sneered. "This woman's life ends right now." He signaled toward the stairs. "Bring her up." Lu Yong turned and nearly collapsed. A thug dragged a middle-aged woman into the room. It was Xie Yueying, Lu Yong's confidant and the love of his life. Zhang Xiaoyi held a dagger pressed firmly against her back. "Zhang Xiaoyi, you venomous snake." Lu Yong spat, his voice trembling with rage. "Since I arrived in Runzhou, I've treated you with nothing but kindness. How can you act like a beast?" Zhang Xiaoyi smirked, looking smug. "Official Lu, you might be talented, but you're as naive as a child. I know everyone you drink with, the officials, the merchants, even the ladies in the Western Towers. They told me you were passed out drunk here. I had to see it for myself." Xie Yueying was in her 40s, but she remained striking and elegant. Even now, facing a blade, she held herself with a fierce, sharp energy. Seeing her composure gave me a small spark of hope. "Enough talk, mister." Zhang barked, his eyes fixed on Hong Xiugu. "Hong, you hit me with a palm strike 18 years ago. It took me 3 months to recover. Every day since, I've dreamt of flaying your skin and eating your flesh. Today, there is no escape." Mr. Zhang had clearly grown stronger over the years. He looked confident, like he had finally found a way to counter Hong's internal power. He had the hostages, a dozen disciples downstairs, and a thirst for blood. "Wait." Mr. Zhang's eyes widened as he looked at the sword in Hong's hand. "That blade." Hong Xiugu didn't answer. He was scanning the room. Mr. Zhang, Zhang Xiaoyi, and Xie Yueying were 10 paces away by a table. Lu Yong was behind him to the right. Hong's mind raced. He had a plan. "You old beggar," Hong shouted suddenly. "If you've got the guts, tell me your name so I know what to carve on your tombstone. You're dying, and you're still talking trash?" Mr. Zhang growled. "Fine. I'll give you 3 free moves before I kill you." Hong stepped forward, his hands moving in a wide, sweeping motion. It looked like a standard opening move. Mr. Zhang recognized the stance and braced himself, determined to stay calm and let the first move pass to maintain his honorable facade. But Hong didn't finish the move. His left hand suddenly shot upward, fingers pointing at the ceiling. Everyone's eyes instinctively followed his hand. Mr. Zhang realized the trap a second too late. He dove to the right, crashing into a table and sending it flying. Hong hadn't been attacking Mr. Zhang at all. As his left hand pointed up, his right hand flicked a silver needle with lightning speed. It didn't hit the master. It buried itself deep into Zhang Xiaoyi's neck, right in the hollow above his collarbone. Zhang Xiaoyi gasped, his chest tightening as paralysis set in. His grip on the dagger failed. Xie Yueying didn't hesitate. She bolted toward Lu Yong. Zhang was too rattled to stop her. In one breath, Hong had distracted the master, disabled the apprentice, and rescued the hostage. Hong didn't stop. He lunged at Mr. Zhang, his palm glowing with power. Mr. Zhang recognized the deadly strike and scrambled back, refusing to take it head-on. Hong didn't overextend. He pivoted, his left hand snapping out like a whip. Mr. Zhang leaped onto a table to avoid the strike. 3 moves are up, Hong said, stepping back to guard Lu Yong and Xie Yueying. He smiled. Not bad for an old beggar. That leap was impressive. Since when did you learn the light footwork of the Lushan sect? Are you stealing techniques now? Xie Yueying let out a sharp laugh. Only leaks belong on a dinner table. Why don't you come down from there? She knew exactly what Hong was doing. He was mocking Mr. Zhang, trying to bait him into a reckless rage. A frustrated fighter makes mistakes. "You brat!" Mr. Zhang screamed, jumping down. "You used a trick. That's not how a hero fights." He was cautious now. He feared Hong's hidden needles and realized Hong's internal strength was far beyond what he expected. Hong, meanwhile, was staying focused. He knew he couldn't afford to be reckless with Lu Yong standing right there. Zhang Xiaoyi was down, but there were still a dozen men downstairs. Mr. Zhang reached into his sleeve and pulled out a short, thin blade. It shimmered with a faint green light. It was the legendary Yuchong's sword, the fish gut blade, an ancient weapon made for assassins. Hong didn't underestimate him. He reached for the heavy, broad scabbard at his waist, and drew his own weapon. The room filled with a cold, oppressive light. The sword was massive, thick, and appeared to have no sharp edge. Mr. Zhang's face turned pale. The Juk's sword? You're the one who stole it. Hong didn't say a word. He just smiled. Outside, the sky suddenly bruised purple. Thick clouds rolled in, and a torrential downpour began to hammer against the roof of the restaurant. The sound of the rain was deafening, making the room feel like a tomb. Hong stood like a god of war, his white robes trimmed with black, his heavy sword pointed at the floor. He knew Mr. Zhang was dangerous, and he was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Mr. Zhang was 10 years older and far more volatile. He had bragged to his disciples about capturing Hong, and now he looked like a fool. He screamed, "You stole the master's sword. You're a dead man." He lunged. The Yuchong's sword moved like a river, the tip flickering like falling snow. His movements were ethereal, ghostly. He unleashed 7 stabs in a heartbeat, all of them feints, yet all of them aimed at vital pressure points. It was the 1,000-flower style, a rare, dizzying technique from the East. The blade was flexible and unpredictable, perfectly suited for the chaotic rhythm of the falling rain. The air in the room hummed with the vibration of the Yuchong's sword. Zhang didn't stop at 7 strikes. In a flash, 3 more stabs whistled through the air, aiming for my forehead, my chest, and my belly. I didn't dodge this time. I gripped the Juk's sword with both hands and held it vertically in front of my body. The blade was so wide it acted like a shield, covering all 3 vital spots at once. Mr. Zhang was fast. He didn't let his thin blade clash with my heavy iron. He pulled back and thrust again, his movements becoming even more fluid and unpredictable. He wasn't just gripping the sword anymore. He was sticking to it, letting the blade dance like a ghost. I stayed still. I didn't waste energy on useless swings. Suddenly, a thought flashed through my mind. Great skill looks clumsy. I started to strike with simple, straight thrusts and heavy overhead splits. It looked like I had no technique at all, but I was following the true path of martial arts. The whole point of his 1,000-flower style was to make me run myself ragged until I dropped from exhaustion. I was a master, and after a few exchanges, I saw right through him. I used the Juk's massive reach to my advantage. I didn't even try to stab him. I just moved my blade to intercept his whenever he got close. Because the Yuchong's sword was so short, Mr. Zhang had to work twice as hard. Zhang didn't dare let the blades touch. His momentum slowed as he was forced to dodge. I saw my opening. I purposely left a gap in my defense, baiting him. Mr. Zhang took the bait. He thought I was finally tiring out. He lunged forward, his blade aiming straight for the pressure point in my shoulder. He thought he had me, but before his tip could touch my skin, the heavy point of my Juk was already at his wrist. If he didn't pull back, I'd take his hand off. He tried to retract his arm, but he was a second too late. A dull thud echoed through the room. The Yuchong's sword flew out of his grip and embedded itself deep into a wooden ceiling beam. I hadn't even moved my feet or my arms. I had simply flicked my wrist, using the Juk's length to strike first while moving second. It was a classic save the kingdom by attacking the enemy's home tactic. The tide had turned. I didn't give him a chance to breathe. I swung my heavy sword like a meat cleaver, using my sect's dust-clearing style. The room was cramped, filled with broken tables and chairs, but I pressed him hard. Mr. Zhang was frantic. He tried to leap up to the rafters to grab his sword, but I cut him off every time. "Where are my disciples?" he screamed in terror. Downstairs, his students had been waiting, thinking their master would win easily. They had heard the fighting go on too long and wanted to help, but they were afraid of being punished for interfering. When they finally heard him scream, they rushed up the stairs. But the leader stopped dead when he saw Zhang Xiaoyi lying in a pool of blood at the landing. They were too paralyzed with fear to move. I knew they were coming, so I shouted into the shadows, "Now! Do it!" Mr. Zhang froze, thinking I had reinforcements. A silver light flashed. He sensed a needle flying toward him and jumped onto a table to avoid it. But a second needle followed instantly, catching him midair while he had no way to shift his weight. It hit him right in the collarbone. His breath hitched. Half his body went numb, and he crashed off the table, hitting the floor like a sack of stones. I laughed and walked toward the stairs. The lead disciple saw me coming and tried to bolt, but he collided with the people behind him. The whole group went tumbling down the stairs in a heap. I walked down calmly, tapped their pressure points to paralyze them, and went back up to Lu Yong. My sworn brother was shaking, his voice trembling. Brother, what kind of magic was that? How did he just fall? I turned to Xie Yueying and bowed slightly. Thank you for the help, senior sister. Lu Yong gasped. Mr. Zhang, lying on the floor, looked even more miserable. He realized I hadn't used magic at all. I had just distracted him while the woman he thought was a helpless bystander did the real work. Don't thank me, Xie Yueying said coldly. You saved my life first. You're too smart for your own good, Lin Yuan. I've been hiding here for years, and you exposed me in one night. No wonder the sect leader favors you. In a few years, you'll probably have his job. I wouldn't dare, I replied, my voice flat. We're from the same sect. We can settle our issues later. What should we do with these people? Do whatever you want, she snapped. But you used your own brother as bait. If anything had happened to him, I wouldn't have forgiven you, even if you were the sect leader. My face flushed with a bit of guilt, but then I got angry. Ji Shimi is your person, isn't she? If she hadn't slipped up and revealed herself, my brother wouldn't have been in this mess. Xie Yueying didn't answer. She leapt into the air, plucked the Yuchong's sword from the ceiling beam, and walked over to the paralyzed Mr. Zhang. With 2 quick stabs, she pierced through both of his arms. Lu Yong's legs turned to jelly at the sight. She glared at me. This isn't the place to talk. Tonight at midnight, at the tower on Bega Mountain. We'll be waiting for you. And Qi Qing, I'll explain everything to you later. She tossed the Yuchong's sword to me and disappeared into the ring. She didn't leave any witnesses. On her way out, she struck the fatal pressure points of every single disciple downstairs, including Zhang Xiaoi. I didn't stop her. I just asked her to clean up the mess. Mr. Zhang, or Zhang Hanjian, as he was really known, was unconscious and bleeding out. I gave him a quick bandage so he wouldn't die yet. I sheathed my juk, put the fish gut blade in a small box up my sleeve, and grabbed Lu Yong with one hand and Zhang with the other. I carried them down like they weighed nothing. Lu Yong looked at the bodies littering the floor and turned away, unable to watch. We hurried out of the restaurant, passing the dead owner and his waiter. We ran through the rain for 2 blocks until we reached a dried-up well. I jumped in, cleared away some dead grass, and pulled a hidden ring. A secret tunnel opened up. Brother, follow me, I said. I'll explain everything once we're out. The tunnel was deep and long, lined with torches and flint. It was clearly a well-maintained escape route. We walked until we hit a fork, and I led us to the left. The path started to slope upward, and Lu Yong began to huff. Brother, I'm old, he panted. I can't walk much further. Let's rest. I nodded and dropped Zhang Hanjian on the ground. Is he dead? Lu Yong asked tentatively. He was still thinking about how brutally Xie Yueying had stabbed the man. She was nothing like the gentle woman he thought he knew. He's alive for now, I said. His name is Zhang Hanjian. He's famous for his speed, but he's a traitor who murdered his own master and sold out his country. He's scum. If I didn't need information from him, I would have ended him hours ago. I looked down at Zhang Hanjian and felt a surge of pure disgust. This man started as a disciple of the Shinbu sect in Mount Lu, I explained to Lu Yong. They were famous for their lightness skills, and Zhang was their rising star. But he was rotten to the core. He got caught stealing forbidden techniques, and instead of repenting, he murdered his own master. He fled north with the sect's treasures, the cloud-ascending manual and the fish gut blade. I paused, checking the bindings on our prisoner. He sold himself to the Chitons. They created a secret organization called the Eastern Pavilion to plant spies and assassins within our borders. Zhang was one of the first to join. He proposed a twisted plan: assassinate the virtuous officials of the Song dynasty and replace them with corrupt traitors. My sect was ordered to investigate the wave of assassinations, and I was the one who finally tracked him down. He's the leader of the bandits in Jiangnan now, specifically targeting local officials. Lu Yong's eyes widened. Then who is the master of this Eastern Pavilion? I shook my head. Nobody knows. He's a ghost. I hoisted Zhang Hanjian back onto my shoulder. Come on, we're almost there. Another half hour, and we'll reach the end of the tunnel. We kept moving through the damp dark until we reached a stone slab overhead. I signaled Lu Yong to be silent. From above, a crisp female voice drifted down. Sister, I've burned the Baizue restaurant to the ground, the voice said. It was Ji Shimmy. The rain made it difficult, but I made sure not a single trace was left behind. We've searched this area, too. No signs of an ambush. You're being too paranoid about that kid Lin Yuan. That kid is full of tricks, Xie Yueying's voice snapped back. Who knows what he's planning? Lu Yong looked at me, realizing the tunnel had led us straight to Bega Mountain. I put a finger to my lips, listening as Xie Yueying continued. Senior brother Lin is a man of integrity. Ji Shimmy defended me softly. He wouldn't plot against his own kind. Integrity. Xie Yueying's tone sharpened, turning cold and angry. Are you saying I'm the one lacking integrity? Just because you've fallen for him doesn't mean you should turn against your own sister. In the shadows of the tunnel, I kept my face expressionless, though I could feel Lu Yong staring at me in shock. No, sister. That's not what I meant. Ji Shimmy stammered, sounding panicked. Another man's voice, deep and hurried, cut in to de-escalate. She didn't mean it like that, sister. Please, don't be angry. Xie Yueying's voice softened slightly. I've spent years undercover in a brothel for the sake of the sect. I've carried that stain on my reputation without regret, all to find the traitors among us. Even with Qi Qing, I never crossed the line. I did my duty. But today, Lin Yuan put Qi Qing in danger. I thought he was keeping him close for safety, but now I wonder. Her voice suddenly spiked into a piercing scream. Sister, how did you leak our position? The sheer force of her internal energy in that shout made me and Lu Yong flinch even down in the tunnel. Then, from a distance, we heard a muffled groan of pain. Fifth junior brother, bring him here, Xie Yueying commanded, her voice trembling with excitement. He's finally shown himself. We were directly beneath the famous Begu Pavilion. It was a clear night, the moon hanging high over the Yangtze River, illuminating the strategic heights of the mountain. A man named Wu Xiuli, a plain-looking fellow who looked more like a servant than a warrior, stepped out from behind a jagged rock. He was dragging a small, elderly man dressed in black night gear. Wu Xiuli's movements were lightning fast. He stripped the mask off the captive and froze. Uncle Du. Xie Yueying stepped forward, her sword already drawn and leveled at the old man's throat. Du Qinglang. So, the traitor in the Zijin branch was you all along. You're an elder of this sect. How could you sell us out to the Chitons? The old man, Du Qinglang, looked miserable. He had been hiding behind the rocks, trying to eavesdrop on them. Xie Yueying had anticipated this. She had marked the hiding spots around the pavilion beforehand and noticed one of the marks was disturbed. She had staged the entire conversation with her siblings, lowering her voice to lure him closer, then used that final, high-pitched scream to distract him while she fired silver needles into his pressure points. He was paralyzed and in agony. Xie Yueying reached out and tapped 2 more points on his chest to dull the pain just enough for him to speak. Your needle technique is flawless, sister, another disciple, Qin Xiuyu, praised. Xie Yueying ignored the compliment. She pressed the tip of her blade against Du Qinglang's Adam's apple. Answer me. Who do you take orders from? How many more traitors are in Jiangnan? And did you murder our brothers from the Longquan branch? She fired the questions like arrows. The other 3 disciples shifted their weight, surrounding the old man in a killing formation. He was trapped, and I knew the real interrogation was about to begin. To prevent Du Qinglang from forcing open his pressure points and launching a counterattack, I kept a close watch. The old man started to speak, his voice rasping and slow. He laughed, a dry, hacking sound that turned into a full-blown cackle despite his coughing. He told us our sect leader was senile and useless. He mocked the Longquan branch for being barely able to save themselves and called the Zijin branch a group of wet-behind-the-ears brats. He didn't see himself as a spy. In his twisted mind, we were the ignorant ones. He claimed the sect was rotting from the inside and would crumble soon anyway. He was just a wise man refusing to stand under a collapsing wall. Xie Yueying frowned, her patience thinning. She opened her mouth to press him further, but the air suddenly turned freezing. A massive surge of killing intent came from behind her. Xie Yueying didn't hesitate. She leapt forward, clearing Du Qinglang's body and nearly colliding with Qin Xiuyu. Beside them, Wu Xiuli and Ji Xioping felt a crushing force slamming toward them. They threw themselves to the ground, rolling away in a desperate, ungraceful scramble. A masked figure in black appeared out of nowhere. With a single move, he had forced all four of them back. This person was fast, much faster and more ruthless than Xie Yueying or the others. He didn't waste a second, lunging straight for the weakest link, Qin Xiuyu. Qin Xiuyu froze, terror locking her limbs. Just as the black-clad man was about to strike her down, Xie Yueying and the other two swung their blades in a desperate rescue attempt. It was a trap. The attacker had used Qin Xiuyu as bait to draw them in. He pivoted midair, dodging all three blades and landing right next to Ji Xioping. He raised his hand to strike her vitals. Before his fingers could land, the wind whistled behind him. Something was flying at his head. He spun around and flicked his finger, shattering the projectile with a sharp crack. It wasn't a hidden blade, it was a heavy floor tile. I had been waiting in the tunnel for the interrogation to finish, but when this stranger appeared, I knew I had to move. I jumped out just in time to see Ji Xioping about to be killed. I didn't have time to draw my blade, so I grabbed the nearest thing, a loose tile, and hurled it to force the man to defend himself. The masked man realized a real threat had arrived. He ignored Ji Xioping and lunged for Du Qinglang. Xie Yueying was the closest. She saw his hand move and knew he meant to silence the prisoner forever. She couldn't block the strike directly, so she did the only thing she could think of. She dived toward Du Qinglang and ripped the silver needles out of his body. The moment the needles were gone, Du Qinglang's meridians unlocked. Seeing a finger aimed straight for his forehead, he arched his back and threw a desperate, powerful palm strike upward. It was the sixth move of the hidden dragon palm. The masked man, stuck in midair, couldn't dodge. Finger met palm in a brutal collision of internal energy. The masked man was stronger. Du Qinglang's meridians were still sluggish from being frozen, and the attacker's concentrated force sent a wave of agony through his arms. They went completely numb. But the hidden dragon palm was no joke. The impact forced the masked man to recoil, his own fingers tingling with numbness. Seeing he was outnumbered and that I was closing in, he didn't linger. He used a high-level movement technique and vanished into the trees before anyone could react. Xie Yueying and her team stood there, pale and shaking. They had searched this area dozens of times and never sensed him. The realization of how close they came to death settled over them like a shroud. Du Qinglang was back on his feet, but his arms hung uselessly at his sides. I walked over with Lu Yong and quickly tapped 2 points on the old man's shoulders. He glared at me, ready to snap, but I stopped him. I lifted his right hand. A thin, sunken red line ran from his palm all the way to his wrist. His voice trembled. He recognized it. It was the soul-chasing finger, a vicious poison technique from the Khitan tribes in the north. Without an antidote, he wouldn't last a month. He looked at me then, his arrogance gone, replaced by a silent plea for help. I ignored him and turned to Xie Yueying. I congratulated her on catching the spy. She gave me a cold look, thanking me for the save, but noting that I didn't seem surprised to find out it was Du Qinglang. She complained that because of traitors like him, our sect's secrets were being sold to the imperial court and our enemies alike. She demanded to know why I hadn't exposed him sooner. I looked at the group and told them the truth. I knew there was a spy, but I wanted to follow the trail to the source. It wasn't just this branch. There were traitors in the main headquarters and likely in the Longquan branch too. Then, I turned my gaze to Ji Xioping. My voice went sharp. I asked her why she had been lurking around Lu Yong's estate for days. She stammered, looking terrified, claiming she was only protecting him on Xie Yueying's orders. Wu Xiuli jumped in to defend her, swearing they only wanted to keep him safe from the thugs targeting him. I looked at Xie Yueying. I told her that approaching my sworn brother wasn't just about finding a spy. Sending someone to watch his house wasn't protection, it was surveillance. Lu Yong looked between us, confused and hurt. He asked Xie Yueying if it was true. She looked ashamed. She suggested we leave the mountain before more enemies arrived, but I pointed at the 2 unconscious captives. We weren't going anywhere until we talked. Xie Yueying finally relented. She knocked Du Qinglang and Zhang Hanjian out cold to ensure they wouldn't overhear us. She took a deep breath, her eyes softening as she looked at Lu Yong. She confessed. Her real name was Xie Xiuying. She was a high-ranking disciple of the 8 Desolations sect. Years ago, she had been sent to the capital specifically to get close to him. Lu Yong let out a bitter, hollow laugh. He was a man whose career had stalled, a man who spent his life in the wine shops and alleys of the city, only to find out his greatest romance was a mission. Xie Xiaoying didn't know how to answer him. She just kept talking, peeling back the layers of the lie she had lived for so long. The goal was to collect the 8 legendary blades of the pre-Qin era. 3 of them, the Longquan, Taiye, and Gongbu, had been kept by the imperial family for generations. They were easy to track. But the other 5 were treasures of the ancient 5-sword sects from centuries ago. Legend said those sects developed peerless techniques based on the unique traits of each blade. They ruled the martial world during the early Tang dynasty before internal strife tore them apart. The sects withered away, and the swords vanished. My sect wanted those blades to rebuild the 5 sects, command the martial world, and ultimately serve the imperial court. Capturing the Yuchong and Juk blades was a massive win for us. Lu Yong listened to all this without much surprise. He had heard bits of this history from me before. His eyes never left Xie Xiaoying. They were filled with a deep, hollow disappointment. Xie Xiaoying couldn't bear to look at him. She kept talking, her voice trembling. She explained that rumors had exploded in the martial world recently. Some said the 8 blades held a secret to world domination or invincible martial arts. Some even claimed the swords could fly across borders to take the heads of enemy kings. It was ridiculous, but one story stood out. Back in the Tang dynasty, a man named Lu Da became a eunuch to avenge his family after they were slaughtered due to palace intrigue. While lurking in the shadows of the court, he discovered an ancient secret. A massive treasure was hidden somewhere in the central plains. The 8 blades were the keys to the vault. Emperor Gaozong had tried to find it to fund his wars, but failed. Lu Da eventually died from his wounds after a failed assassination attempt, passing the secret to his kin before he took his last breath. Lu Yong, Xie Xiaoying said, her voice breaking. I won't lie to you. You are famous, and you come from the Hedong Lu clan. The sect sent me to get close to you to find the secret of the treasure. Investigating the spies was just a secondary mission I received later. She started to cry. She told him that over the years, his devotion had moved her. She couldn't bring herself to hurt him. Lu Yong looked at her, remembering their years together. It was a bond carved into his bones. He stepped forward and took her hand. He told her that if she wanted his life, he'd give it to her, but he truly knew nothing about any treasure. I watched them inside. I told them I'd heard these rumors too. 18 years ago, when I first met my brother Lu Yong, there was no mention of the Lu clan holding ancient treasures. These stories had only surfaced in the last 7 or 8 years. But once they started, everyone moved. Spies from the Liao, Western Xia, and even Goryeo flooded into our lands. I told Xie Xiaoying that I had come to the capital years ago to take Lu Yong to the safety of Zijin Mountain, but I saw her by his side and felt he was safe. She had likely dealt with many hidden threats over the years without him ever knowing. I pointed to the unconscious Zhang Hanjian. He had been watching Lu Yong for a long time. When he saw Ji Xioping lurking around the estate, he probably thought we were closing in on the treasure. I knew you were all in Rougeau, I admitted. I knew you weren't villains, which is why I'm being honest now. Zhang Hanjian is a master of disguise. Ji Xioping couldn't hope to hide from him. He's a traitor from the Lushan divine sect who joined the Khitan's Eason Pavilion. I explained how I lured him into the restaurant to neutralize his speed. Zhang Hanjian had even planned to capture me for a reward. It was clear the Eason Pavilion was the one pulling the strings behind the chaos. Xie Xiaoying finally understood. She realized I had kept Lu Yong close to protect him and used her presence as a distraction to catch Zhang Hanjian off guard. She was impressed. She admitted she used to be bitter when I was appointed to lead the Zijin branch at such a young age, but now she saw why. I had handled everything perfectly. I'm tired of the martial world, Xie Xiaoying said suddenly. My master passed away years ago. I only stayed because the sect leader was kind to me. Now, I just want to take Lu Yong and go somewhere no one can find us. I nodded. That was the best outcome. I had too many responsibilities to watch over Lu Yong forever. Xie Xiaoying was strong and smart. She was the perfect partner for him. But Ji Xioping was falling apart. She was overwhelmed by guilt for endangering everyone and heartbroken that Xie Xiaoying was leaving. She started sobbing, blaming herself for her lack of caution. Then, she looked at me. I was staring at her, my face stern and my brow furrowed. Something snapped in her. In a moment of pure emotional chaos, she drew her sword and swung it toward her own hand. It happened too fast. Xie Xiaoying tried to move, but she was too far. I didn't think. I felt the Yuchang blade in my palm and flicked it out. There was a loud metallic clang as my blade struck hers, sending it flying out of her hand. But the Yuchang was too sharp, and I had been too desperate. The tip of my blade caught her forearm. Blood sprayed instantly. Ji Xiaoping collapsed, gasping in pain. Wu Xiuli rushed over with medicine and bandages, while Xie Xiaoying held her, whispering comfort. I stood there, my heart racing. I was good at running a sect, but when it came to feelings, I was lost. I had saved her life, but seeing her bleed by my own hand left me completely shaken. If my martial arts were as good as people claimed, I never would have hurt Ji Xiaoping. But in that moment, my mind was a mess of tangled emotions I couldn't even name. I watched as junior brother Wu applied the ointment to her arm. Her breathing finally slowed down. Seeing Wu's genuine care for her gave me a small sense of relief. I turned to Xie Yueying and pulled out my command token. Sister Xie, take this. Head west along the river. If you need a boat, show this token to my men. They'll be waiting to assist you. I had originally prepared those men to escort some civilians west, but plans had changed. Xie Yueying took the token and nodded slowly. She looked at me with a knowing expression. She realized I must have known they were meeting on Bega Mountain for a long time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a boat ready so perfectly. I had protected her secret for years while she hid in the brothel, keeping enemies like Zhang Hanjin away from her. But there were too many puzzles left. Why did Du Qingling know about this meeting? Who sent him? And where did that mysterious man in black come from? The Paper Shoe sect hasn't been seen in the martial world for years, I said, thinking aloud. That man in black was strange. He must have followed Du Qingling here. When he saw you capture Du, he tried to kill him to silence him. This goes deep. I looked at my junior siblings. Wu, Ji, Qin, stay here and guard these two prisoners. Sister Xie, brother Lu, a word in private. I led them toward the hidden tunnel entrance. That man in black is powerful, I whispered. I traded a blow with him earlier, and even I'm not sure if he was truly hurt. Take the tunnel just in case. Remember, there are two paths. One leads back the way you came, but the other goes straight to the riverbank. Go now. I gripped Liu Yong's hand. When the time is right, I'll spread word of your deaths. You won't have to worry about the rumors of the martial world anymore. Liu Yong held my hand tightly, reluctant to leave. Then, he leaned in close. Before my father died, he told us three brothers to remember one phrase. The beloved is on the other side of the water. I don't know if it relates to those legends you're investigating. I nodded, absorbing the clue. I watched them disappear into the darkness and slid the heavy masonry back into place, sealing the tunnel. For a second, I stood there in the silence, a stray tear pricking the corner of my eye. Junior brothers, sister, I called out, regaining my composure. Help me bring these two back to the Zijin branch. We need answers before you head back to Longquan to report. Ji Xiaoping had calmed down by now. She sat on a stone bench, stealing glances at me. When our eyes met, her expression shifted from fear to a sudden realization. She finally understood that my stern look earlier wasn't anger. It was pure, raw panic because I was afraid of losing her. Her spirit seemed to lift instantly. I sat down to meditate and recover my energy in front of the Bega Pavilion. The sun began to rise over the Jiangnan landscape, painting the sky in pale summer light. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps approached. Wu, Ji, and Qin jumped up, hands on their swords. But as the figures emerged from the mist, they relaxed. It was our own people, 7 members from the Zijin branch. Leading them was a thin, pale man with delicate features, though his clothes were dusty and a broken bag hung over his shoulder. He looked more like a failed scholar than a warrior. Brother Lin, he shouted before he even reached us. A man in black ran right past us. We couldn't catch him. This was Chu Xiuqi. He ignored the visitors from the Longquan branch and put on a mock-arrogant face, reciting a snide poem about how Westerners are just country bumps. Wu Xiuli looked ready to explode, but a massive, burly man named Qi stepped forward with a huge grin. He clapped Wu on the shoulder. Junior brothers and sisters, welcome to Jiangnan. It's been too long. Wu stiffened but stayed polite. Brother Chi, you've grown even more formidable since the last tournament. Thank you for going easy on me back then. Nonsense. Chi laughed. We're all from the same sect. We'll have a real rematch this year. Chu Xiuqi, the scholar, chimed in with a poisonous tongue. Oh, Brother Chi is famous for being a living llama. He never goes easy on anyone. Remember when he killed that thief in Sichuan? He wasn't smiling then. He was intentionally trying to provoke Wu Xioli. I knew why. Chu was fiercely loyal to our Zijin branch. Ever since he found out the Longquan branch was secretly investigating us, he felt betrayed. He couldn't take it out on the girls, so Wu became his favorite target. That's enough, Junior Brother Chu, I said firmly. Don't go looking for trouble. Chu rolled his eyes and shut up, but then he spotted the black bandage on Ji Xiuping's arm. Sister Ji, did a dog bite you? That black cloth looks hideous. He had no idea I was the one who cut her. If he knew, he wouldn't have dared to open his mouth. Qin Xiuyu burst out laughing, while I felt my face turn grim. Ji Xiuping just looked down, blushing slightly. I see, Ji Xiuping said, looking at the 7 newcomers. No wonder Brother Lin was so calm. The 7 stars of Jiangzuo were already here to back him up. I simply nodded. The rivalry between our 2 branches ran deep. For years, the Longquan branch had been obsessed with the Lu family secrets, believing they held the key to the 8 great blades. They had sent Xie Yueying to go undercover years ago to watch Lu Yong. She was supposed to be a spy, but she had fallen for his talent and charm until they were inseparable. Now, the pieces were moving. My sister was safe, but the real war for the secrets of the martial world was just beginning. In the Jiangnan region, nothing stayed hidden from the Zijin branch for long. Hong Xiugu was a brilliant leader, and with his 7 junior brothers backing him up, he had tracked the Longquan branch's every move. If not for Xie Yueying's explanation, I wouldn't have realized they had been investigating the Lu family for so long. Those 7 men assisting Hong Xiugu were known as the 7 stars of Jiangzuo. People in Jiang and even sang nursery rhymes about them, the 7 heroes of Zijin Villa who fought for justice. First, there was Qi Xiutai, the living llama. He hated evil with a passion and used a pair of judge's pens to deal out death. Then there was Chu Xiuqi, the scholar of 100 treasures. He was an expert at identifying rare artifacts, possessed high-level martial arts, and loved to talk nonsense. Zhu Xiujin followed, known as Fire Palm, because of his explosive temper and his mastery of the searing fire palm technique. The fourth was Kong Xiuxian, a rare medicine master and a top-tier healer in the martial world. Gu Xiufa, the 100-armed general, obsessed over hidden weapons. He knew every sect's secret techniques, and once famously caught 7 flying needles from a Tang clan master with his bare hands. Yang Xiuning was the scout, 1,000-mile strider, whose lightness kung fu was unmatched. Finally, there was Ning Xiukong, the retrograde overlord, a master of tracking who could take a thief's head before they even knew he was there. Our sect, the 8 Desolations Bright Sword sect, was complex. Although the 2 branches were founded by the disciples of Ren Daoling and Ji Shindao, the main headquarters controlled all appointments. We were all one sect, but we didn't always share the same lineage. The 5 original Grand Masters each had different specialties, and they passed everything down to their disciples without reservation. Because everyone had different natural talents, we followed the 10,000 methods system. We all started with the 100 techniques divine power as our foundation. Once we chose a direction, like palms, blades, or hidden weapons, we could consult anyone in the sect who was a master of that style, regardless of seniority. It wasn't strange to see an elder asking a junior for advice if that junior was more talented in a specific area. These 7 stars were the absolute elite of that system. Senior brother, Chu Xiuqi asked, looking around. The Longquan branch seems to be missing someone. Where's Sister Xie? Often disguised looking for more traitors? Sister Xie has her own mission, Hong Xiugu replied calmly. I don't know if she went north, south, east, or west. Chu Xiuqi laughed. You're a funny man, brother. That's an answer that tells me absolutely nothing. Hong Xiugu smiled back. Don't be so biased against the Longquan branch. They were just following orders. Besides, we have the traitors because of Sister Xie and the others. Look who's on the ground. The 7 stars approached the 2 captives. They weren't surprised to see Zhang Hanjian, as they had been watching him for a while. But when they saw the second man, Du Qinglang, everyone except Yang and Ning gasped in shock. Du Qinglang was usually a humble man. He was well respected, and many disciples went to him for guidance. Hong Shogu had discovered he was a mole by sheer luck and had been shadowing him ever since, keeping the secret tight. You two have big mouths, Chu Xiuqi grumbled at Yang and Ning, realizing they had been in on the secret. Kong Xiuxian, the healer, leaned down and frowned. Brother, they've been out for hours. Zhang is fine, but Uncle Du looks wrong. There's a faint smell of burning, like a deadly poison. He flipped Du's palms over. A thin red line ran from his fingers to his wrists. Kong looked up at Hong Shogu. Silk chain finger, he whispered. Hong Shogu nodded grimly. 18 years ago, a government official in Jiangnan died from that technique. There were only 2 people in the world who knew it. The master of Blood Pool in Liaodong and his junior, the Red Scorpion. The master disappeared decades ago, and the Red Scorpion was killed by a group of masters 3 years later. Nobody should know this move anymore. He paused, his eyes darkening. But when that masked man appeared earlier, I realized there's a third person. He was short, masked, and tried to silence Du Qinglang. Could it be the master of Blood Pool returning? Gu Xiufa asked. No, Hong Shogu said. If he were alive, he'd be an old man. This masked figure moved like someone much younger. We won't know the truth until we make Du Qinglang talk. This isn't the place for an interrogation, Yang Xiuning urged. The boats are ready at the foot of the mountain. Let's get back to Zijin Villa. Hong Shogu agreed. Kong Xiuxian produced 2 pills and forced them down the captives' throats. Within moments, they stirred. Uncle Du, Chu Xiuqi said with a sharp grin. We're going home. I hope you have some good stories to tell us. Du Qinglang's face turned ashen. He stayed silent. Wu Xiuli grabbed Zhang Hanjian like a sack of grain, and the rest of the group marched the prisoners down to the river. By daybreak, we were on the water. The sun was bright, reflecting off the ripples of the Yangtze. This area near Zhenjiang was a massive hub. Boats were everywhere, heading north to Yangzhou, south to Jinkou, or out toward the sea. Our vessel was massive, decorated with intricate carvings of the Zijin Mountains. Hong Shogu sat alone in the cabin, brooding over the masked man. The others stayed on deck, watching the shoreline for any signs of trouble. After a while, Yang Xiuning sat down across from Hong. Before he could speak, Hong asked, How is our youngest junior brother's progress? The kid is a natural, Yang replied, beaming. A once-in-a-century talent. He wrote to Brother Zhu the other day asking about the fire palm, and Zhu couldn't stop praising him. I taught him the formulas for my lightness kung fu recently, too. Hong Shogu looked relieved. Good. His internal energy must be improving. Our sect's many techniques are just skills. The internal power of the 100 techniques is the way. Make sure he doesn't lose sight of the foundation. Yang laughed. You worry about him more than his own master does. But listen, brother, a messenger pigeon arrived from the villa yesterday. You need to hurry back. Someone from the Hall of Affairs is waiting for you. Hong Shogu looked startled. The Hall of Affairs? They handle internal discipline at the main headquarters. They never travel this far. What could they want with the Zijin branch? I don't know, Yang said quietly. We'll just have to see when we get there. Ji Xioping walked over, carrying a plate of fresh fruit. He looked hesitant, his eyes darting away with a touch of shyness. Brothers, he said softly, please have some fruit. Yang Xiuning was about to respond when Chu Xiuqi called out from the bow of the ship. Junior brother Yang, look at those white birds skimming the water. Their posture is exactly like your signature move, leaf touching water. Nonsense, Yang snapped, his face reddening. There is no such move as leaf touching water. My technique is called not a single leaf touches. You're already soaked in the river and you don't even know it, Chu Xiuqi teased. How can you claim not to be touched? Yang Xiuning suddenly realized what was happening. Ji Xioping hadn't come over to feed both of them. He wanted to speak with Hong Shogu alone. The fruit was just an excuse. Brother Chu, wait right there, Yang shouted, playing along. I'm coming over to explain the true subtlety of my technique to you. He hurried toward the bow, leaving the two of them alone. The rest of the crew burst into laughter, though Wu Xiuli kept her head turned away, looking annoyed. Ji Xiaoping's face turned bright red. Hong Xiugu opened his mouth to speak, but Ji Xiaoping beat him to it. Brother Hong, I don't have much to say. I just wanted to thank you for saving me today. His voice was barely a whisper. Hong Xiugu tried to find the right words to reply, but he felt awkward. He simply nodded. Seeing his discomfort, Ji Xiaoping didn't push for more conversation. He carefully peeled an orange, placed it gently in front of Hong, and walked away. The journey from Runzhou to Jiangning Prefecture was short. A few hours later, we reached the Yinzi Cliffs at the foot of Mufa Mountain. Disciples from the Zijin Villa were already there waiting for us. One handsome young man stood out. His eyes were bright and sharp. He wore white robes with a black belt and carried a long sword at his hip. His entire style seemed modeled after Hong Xiugu. He looked excited to see Hong, but his expression shifted when he saw the captive, Du Qinglang. He knew Hong had been out with the 7 stars of Jiangzhou on a vital mission. He didn't ask questions, but I could tell he had already guessed the man was a traitor. Little junior brother, Hong Xiugu said, cupping his hands. Thank you for meeting us. Wait, is this the famous little brother you all talk about? Qin Xiuyu asked, stepping forward. She had been quiet for most of the trip, but she couldn't hide her delight at seeing him. She wasn't much older than he was. Little brother, do you only see your senior brothers? Do you not see your senior sister? The boy bowed deeply. Yun Xiuza of Zijin Villa greets senior sister Qin. Qin Xiuyu looked confused. We've never met. How do you know who I am? Every year at the famous sword assembly in Yingtian Prefecture, the main headquarters and the branches send their best to compete, Yun Xiuza explained calmly. I am the youngest in the Xiu generation. My skills are poor, so I never get to fight. That's why you don't recognize me. But I know I'm not talented, so I always ask my masters and brothers to let me watch. If I remember correctly, last year was your second time attending. I didn't even fight last year, Qin Xiuyu said, her curiosity growing. Ning Xiukong laughed. Sister Qin, you don't know. Our little brother has a photographic memory. We can't even dream of matching it. He watched me perform my sword style twice and could recite the manual word for word. If you were at that assembly, he knows your face. Even if he knows my face, how does he know my name? Why am I not Sister Li or Sister Wang? Qin Xiuyu pressed. Yun Xiuza smiled. Sister Qin, there is a deep pit near where you disembarked. It collects water after the rain. Just now, when everyone jumped over it, you were the only one who dropped your right shoulder slightly before the leap. I remember seeing that exact movement at the Dragon Spring branch.